Hi, welcome to second lecture of controlling. In the last lecture, we looked at the organizational structure in controlling. Then we configured the controlling area. We activated some of the components of the controlling area, relevant components of the controlling area, and we created controlling version 0. In this lecture, we will look at the cost element accounting and understand cost element accounting, configure cost element accounting, and create some cost elements. However, before we do that, let's look at the number ranges. In controlling, CO documents are saved under business type, business transaction type. CO number range is assigned to the business transaction type. Examples of these business transaction types are like KAMV, which is for manual cost allocation, RKU1, which is for manual reposting, and so on. So let us create the CO number range. The transaction code is KA and K. Our controlling area is AUM1. So we will create 3 groups. Click the new button, create. Let's create one group for planning of cost elements. So we can give the name planning underscore company name home tech. Number range. Let's try this number range. So this group has been created. You can see the group planning underscore home tech has been created. We create 2 more groups, this time for the primary cost elements. Second group, primary cost element number range has been created. And we create the last 1 more group. This is for secondary cost elements. Okay, so all 3 number range groups have been created. The next step in the controlling number range is to assign the business transaction types. So on the left hand side, you see this transaction type like ZRPU, KABM, KAMV. These have to be assigned to the number range group which we have created. So let's say we want to assign the business transaction type KAMV, which is for manual cost allocation. So put your cursor on this business transaction type. Now click the assign element group icon. Select the group primary home tech. So the reason is this is primary. And now click the arrow. Once this is done, save. So with this, the business transaction type has been assigned to this number range. So you can see you have the group primary home tech and the business transaction type KAMB, which is for manual cost allocation, has been assigned. We will continue with this assignment as we move forward in our course. We will assign more business transaction type to these groups. So the summary of what we have covered in the controlling overviews: we created the controlling area in transaction code OKKP. We assigned company code AUM1 to this controlling area. We activated various components in the controlling area. Again, the transaction code is OKKP. We set the default controlling area. Initially, the controlling area was MK14. We went to this transaction code OKKS and set it as default controlling area. And then in the last lecture, we also created the controlling area version 0. So moving to the next topic, this is cost element accounting. So what are cost elements? Cost elements are cost carrier between cost object. A cost element can be represented as either cost or revenue. There are two types of cost elements, primary and secondary. A primary cost element. So primary cost elements are main integration between FI and controlling. Values flow from FI module, that is finance module, to controlling module through primary cost elements. All income and expense accounts in the finance module can be created as primary cost element. Secondary cost elements. Secondary cost elements are created only in the controlling area. They are not represented by GL accounts in the FI module. Secondary cost elements are created for the below purpose. They are used to transfer cost between cost objects like internal order, cost centers, COPA in controlling. They are used for allocation of expenses, cost, overheads in the product costing. And they are used to transfer values from cost center to COPA. So regarding this application use of secondary cost elements for direct and indirect overhead, this we will have a detailed discussion and practical application in the product costing module of this course. As for transfer of cost between cost objects in controlling, in the subsequent lecture, we will discuss the allocation, that is assignment, assessment, reposting in the controlling area in cost center accounting. There we will see how the cost can be transferred between various cost objects using secondary cost elements. Cost element categories. So what are cost element categories? Cost element categories classify primary and secondary cost elements. The cost element category determines whether you can post to a cost element directly or indirectly. Direct posting, you can post an amount to an account by specifying the GL account number. You can post directly to all primary cost elements. Indirect posting, the cost element is determined automatically at the time of posting. Indirect posting is only possible for secondary cost elements. So let's look at the cost element categories. They are for primary cost elements and secondary cost elements. When it comes to primary cost elements, can have a category 01, which is for primary cost element, category 12, which is for sales deductions cost elements, 11, which is for revenue cost elements. Similarly, on the secondary cost elements, there could be categories like 21 for internal settlement, 41 for indirect overheads, 43 for internal activity / direct overheads, and 42 for assessment cost elements. So various cost element categories. Primary cost element, 01 is primary cost element. These are used for expense GL accounts other than sales deductions. Primary cost element 12, this is used for sales and distribution. This comes from sales and distribution module and it is used for sales deductions. 22 is an external settlement category. It is used for cost elements which are used to move costs from CO to FI. 11 cost element category. This is used for cost elements which are revenue, like sales and revenue GL accounts. Similarly, secondary cost element categories 21. This is used for internal settlement, used to settle service order to cost objects. 31. This is used for work in progress or research analysis, result analysis. So category 31, this is used for work in progress / result analysis key. This is used in product costing, required for the calculation of work in progress or result analysis. 41, indirect overhead category. So indirect costs like administrative expenses are not directly traceable to the product. Client can provide a percentage of material cost, say 10%, which can be assigned as indirect overhead to the product. So this cost element category is used to calculate the indirect overhead and assign it to the product costing. 42 cost element category. This is used for cost elements which are used for assessment purpose. This will be discussed subsequently, basically to transfer cost from between various cost objects. 43 activity cost elements. This is used to transfer cost center cost to product based on time spent on the job. Example, labor activity cost, assembling cost. So now we will go and create primary cost elements, secondary cost elements, cost element groups in SAP. Let us set our controlling area, which is correct, AUM1. Let's check if any cost elements already exist in it. K02 is a transaction code which is mentioned in the presentation. F4. For this controlling area, do I have anything? So no cost element exists in this controlling area. Then primary cost elements are extension of the GL accounts, as we discussed, revenue and expense accounts. So we go to FS00 where we can see the GL accounts. Our company code is AUM1. So to create a new primary cost element, the transaction code is KA01. Now, there are two ways of doing it. One is you can always go to transaction code KA01, give an existing GL account and then create it. But I will prefer rather the other option, where in FI you come to the transaction code FS00 to create a primary cost element. Now here you give the cost element for which the primary cost element, here you give the GL account for which the primary cost element has to be created. So let's give this GL account 400,000. This is for the raw material consumption. For this we want to create a primary cost element. So click the button edit cost element. This takes you to the transaction code KA01 and the cost element is now 400,000 here. Click enter and the values get updated from the GL account master data, that is direct material. Cost element category, let's do an F4. You see the categories which are available. This we have already discussed. So for this it will be number 1, which is primary cost element category. And you can save it. So we created 400,000, which is a raw material account, as a primary cost element. Let's create some more accounts. So this is raw material consumption account. Similar to the earlier account, we create one more cost element. Category is 1, save. Let's select this account 400,200. This is for the wages. Again, a P&L expense account. Click the button Edit Cost Element. Create this as a primary cost element. Category is 1. So as we move forward in the course, when we work on the product costing, internal orders, we will create more cost elements, and we will also create secondary cost element at that time. Even during the cost center accounting planning, we will create secondary cost elements. Another concept here is the cost element group. So let's create a cost element group, KH1. So cost element is nothing but a group of cost elements which are added below a cost element group. So we give it a name with our name AUM1 underscore. We will add the material in cost elements in this, so underscore MAT, and this is tech solutions materials. So a cost element group has been created. Now we will add some cost elements to it. So click the cost element button, and let's select some of the cost element which we have created earlier. So we created one for raw material. This also for raw material. Direct raw material consumption. So both of these cost element gets added to this cost element group. Cost element group is useful at the time of cost center accounting reporting. So with this, we complete the cost center cost element accounting. The key transaction code used in cost element accounting are: create the primary cost element, which is K01, create secondary cost element K06, change and display cost elements like KA02 and 03, create cost element group KH1, list the cost elements K23. In the next lecture, we will start with the cost center accounting, which will be a very interesting and topic.